The story starts with Jason Mercer being born with a silver spoon in his mouth. The Mercer name echoed in every boardroom and adorned towering skyscrapers. Their doors were made of solid gold, and whispered behind them were secrets that moved markets and changed lives. His concerns were drowned out in a sea of greed and short-term gains, leaving behind a trust fund, a board seat, and an inheritance most would kill for. He didn't have a plan, just a purpose: to explore the world his father's money could never show him. He heard tales of dreams deferred, of bills unpaid, and hopes hanging by a thread. And amidst the symphony of the city, Jason discovered a melody that resonated with his soul. His voice was just another casualty in the relentless pursuit of profit. Her name was Ren. Sharp, ambitious, with a laugh that could cut through the thickest of stress and a mind that could outmaneuver any corporate executive. Jason could see it in the way she organized the morning rush, the way she handled a difficult customer, or the way she effortlessly memorized everyone's regular orders. A line meant for a coworker, spoken behind his back. "That guy in the suit? He smells rich but acts lost. Like he's running from something." They all are. She was right. And Jason realized it was time to stop running. She was smart enough to run a company, but she was stuck behind a coffee counter. "You've been gone for months. We were worried sick." He landed in Brooklyn, a place as different from his life as one could imagine. "I just needed some space. Time to think." He sat down with his father, ready to reconnect, to understand the legacy he'd walked away from. But what happened next shocked him. Instead, a sleek brunette sat in the guest chair, radiating an air of authority that sent chills down Jason's spine. His father, usually impeccably dressed, was in a rumpled suit, his normally sharp features etched with worry. "Actually, Mr. Mercer, this conversation needs to take place at a later date, preferably when we can speak freely without interruptions." The woman gestured toward the door. "But if it's about you, then let's talk about it here, now." He left the penthouse feeling the weight of his father's troubled gaze upon him. As he made his way down the skyscraper, a sense of foreboding settled in his gut. Surprise flickered across her face, quickly replaced by a professional smile. "What can I get for you, Jason? How's she doing? I haven't seen her around lately." He paused, then added, "Listen, Ren, I need your help." Something was deeply wrong, but no one was willing to tell him what. He listened as she spoke to coworkers about rising rent, racial discrimination, and the way the cafe manager skimmed tips. He needed to connect with Ren, to talk about the growing darkness he sensed in his father's empire. "I tried to talk to him today, but he seemed checked out, almost scared." As he stepped into the familiar cafe, the scent of coffee beans and cinnamon wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. "You need my help if you want to survive this mess." She wasn't afraid to call things out, even when no one else did. "I feel like he's hiding something huge, something dangerous." "Well, if you're worried about your father, you should ask him directly." The quiet life was comfortable, but it lacked purpose. "And Dad, well, he's not the same. It's like he's being manipulated." He looked defeated. "All right, Victoria, I suppose you're right. Jason, I think the best way to reach your father might be through the very thing that drove you away from this company, the scandal. But I'll be damned if I let you undermine me in front of my son." Freezes when he hears what the barista says behind him. But as the weight of the plan settled upon him, a surge of fear coursed through his veins. It was time to confront his legacy, to uncover the truth behind his father's actions. But in doing so, Jason knew he was stepping into a labyrinth of deceit and danger. The question was, could he withstand the storm that awaited him? "She's the perfect bait to lure out your father's conscience. Jason, why don't you take your sister and brother out for dinner? Catch up. It's been too long. But I can't seem to get close enough to find out what. Your father needs to see the consequences of his choices. How do I get to him? How do I get through to him?" Jason decided it was time to go back, not as a boss handing out directives, but as a whisper, a voice amplifying the stories he'd been hearing, the stories that had become his lifeblood. There, under the guise of anonymity, he started over. No longer Mercer, just Jason. No private driver, no security detail, no executive privileges. His dad, Preston Mercer, was the titan behind Mercer Global Holdings, a sprawling $40 billion empire with tentacles in defense, tech, energy, and infrastructure. 5 continents couldn't hide the reach of the Mercer name. But Jason was never interested in the spotlight. He was different. He got a job at a local coffee shop called Bean and Grace, where the workers barely earned minimum wage and the customers rarely looked baristas in the eye. But it was there, in that little cafe, surrounded by the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee, that Jason found something more powerful than any boardroom. People's stories, truths. While his brother thrived on the roar of the crowd, Jason found solace in quiet corners, a book and a cup of coffee. For him, power wasn't about commanding respect. It was about serving people. And he believed true power lay in amplifying their voices, not silencing them. When a scandal erupted, exposing how a factory they invested in overseas was exploiting workers, Jason's world shifted. And so he did the unthinkable. He disappeared. With a backpack and a one-way ticket, he vanished from the headlines, erased his online presence, and severed ties with the family name. He took the subway like everyone else, shouldered past the hip-hop of his old life, and embraced the anonymity of the city. Each cup of coffee came with a side of human experience. There was one barista who stood out amongst the rest, and Jason found himself drawn to her like a moth to a flame, eager to learn from her resilience, her grit, and her spirit. Then one day, while Jason was behind the counter preparing an order, he heard something that froze him in his tracks. To survive, he'd buried himself in work, but something inside him yearned for more. He went back to the Mercer penthouse, not as the son who could make changes from within, but as a guest ready to listen. As the head of security escorted Jason to his father's office, the familiar trophy wife and the youngest son were nowhere to be seen. "Jason, you came back," his father said, relief flooding his face. "I had a premonition you'd return." "You did?" Jason asked, intrigued. "Yes, and I want to know why. You left without a word, severed ties, and let your mother and I believe you were unhappy." "I'm sorry," Jason replied, genuinely apologetic. "About what?" "My life, my purpose," Jason responded cryptically. His father sighed, rubbing his weary eyes. "I thought this was about me, about the company, the scandal." Before Jason could respond, a voice cut in, smooth and confident. "This is none of your business, Victoria. Get out," his father snapped, irritation evident. Victoria arched an eyebrow, but didn't budge. "Oh, don't be like this, Preston. You know this isn't just about you anymore." Jason watched as his father's face crumpled, his shoulders slumping slightly. Jason nodded, grateful for the distraction. On his way to meet his siblings, Jason found himself drawn back to Bean and Grace. Ren looked up from the espresso machine as Jason approached the counter. "Same as usual, Ren," he replied, reaching for his wallet. "Actually, make that 2 coffees. One for me and one for my sister." "Sure thing," she replied, her eyes shining with curiosity. Jason hesitated. "She's fine, just taking some time to herself." "What do you need, Jason?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I think there's something seriously wrong with my father." Ren nodded understandingly. "You said there's more. What else is troubling you?" "This woman, Victoria, she seems to be running the show." Ren pondered, tapping her chin thoughtfully. "I did, but he shuts down. It's like there's a wall between us." "And you think this woman is involved?" Ren stated more than asked. "I do." Ren's gaze turned serious. "What do you mean?" "You need to show him the damage done, the lives affected by Mercer Global." "I agree, but how?" "There's a reason I suggested you bring your sister," Ren said with a sly grin. Jason stared at Ren, realizing the brilliance of her idea. Stay tuned for part 2 of Undercover Boss Orders Coffee. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. See you soon.